mother or father, and make sure that people understand the sun can be a killer, and it's called melanoma. So please do it, and that's the end of my commercial for today. Thanks.
Afghanistan in the fall. What are his chances of coming home alive?
Thank you. His chances, in my view, are very good. But the fact is, having said that, he is going into harm's way. And he's going into harm's way to try to preserve our freedom, to try to make sure that our freedom, which is his first responsibility, and those brave Americans who serve in the military, and that we employ a strategy in Afghanistan which is the same strategy that we employed and succeeded and are winning in Iraq. Something that Senator Obama still fails to understand. He fails to understand that this is not a political issue that you can change your position on. He doesn't understand what was at stake if we failed and had done what he wanted to do, which was pull out last March. But I want to tell you again, very quickly, in Afghanistan we have enormous challenges. The resurgence of the Taliban, a situation in Pakistan where it's very unsettled politically, where there is narco-trafficking to an incredible degree that's going on, and corruption is at a very high level in the government there. And the United States, I won't go through a lot of the command structure problems we have and other problems, but we will, thanks to General Petraeus, who is moving up to a new position soon, we will have a new strategy like the one we employed in Iraq, and we will succeed. And don't fail to understand how evil these Taliban people are and how difficult this challenge is. But all I can say to you is that America owes a great debt. America owes a great debt that we can never repay. That's why I'm always honored to be in the company of these brave Americans. There's Americans here in this audience today who have served in every conflict, from the greatest generation on to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what they have done has made it possible for the rest of us to live in the best and greatest nation in the world. When I look at the hats, I always do point out, see from time to time, the name of a ship, particularly the Navy people, but also Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, and others. I was on board the USS Oriskany when I was flying off one day. You know, one of the things about it being a carrier pilot, you always want the landings to match up with the number of landings to match up with the number of takeoffs. One day I was unable to do that. And a moment of trivia, the USS Oriskany that we both served on now is a great spot to go diving in the Gulf as they sunk it and now resides on the ocean bottom. Thank you, sir, and please go ahead.
What is it going to take to get Congress to release the ban on drilling? The President has done so, but Congress seems to be just wanting to not take any action whatsoever.
Because we have a Congress that is not responsive to the will and the priorities of the American people. My friends, all Americans want us, most Americans want us to drill. And by the way, when the President announced he was lifting the federal moratorium, the price of a barrel of oil went down. And I am convinced that when and I just met with some petroleum producers in California yesterday, and they say there's some oil that is readily accessible to them because they're next to existing rigs that they could get a flow of oil within months, increased oil, within months.
That's right.
So don't listen to this when you hear it would take 5 years or 10 years. And my friends, we've got to do that as we bridge to hydrogen cars, flex fuel cars, the new electric cars, to wind, tide, solar, to all these alternate energies sources which will then allow us to become independent of farming. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you for calling me. My arm was getting really tired. My name is Michelle Wilson, and I have 2 companies here at Sparks. I'm president and CEO, and we're a family-owned company. I'm going to read a brief statement. I was at the State Department and the U.S. Treasury about 2 weeks ago, representing between 30 and 50 U.S. companies who import products from Belarus. I'm assuming you're aware of the recent sanctions that were placed on certain companies in Belarus. I can't import from that factory any longer. I've been importing from that factory for 16 years. I have 3 months in Minsk, Steklevokrino, out of Polish. We have been partners for 16 years. You call yourself a maverick. My father was one of the first U.S. businessmen in the Soviet Union in 1992, Gary Teague. He was featured in Eat magazine in 2003. He was also called a maverick. We approached the State Department and asked them, are you aware how those sanctions, which are trying to force the hand of Lukashenko for civil rights, how they're affecting U.S. companies? They had no idea. They were surprised at the amount of companies that were impacted. I have 3 months now to file bankruptcy because they are my sole supplier. Briefly, they produce products for the U.S. Forest Service to protect homes, to protect people. How does your foreign policy with countries such as Belarus, they don't have a port. How does your foreign policy take into account or try to find out how foreign policy affects U.S. businesses?
Thank you very much.
What's the question? Yeah. What's the question?
Before I